We all know the housing crisis is escalating, and a really good indication of that, I think, is the fact that from the time we released the brief and people began ordering their packages to do the competition, and the time that the competition submissions came in, construction costs had escalated so exponentially that our technical advisors spent about a week before reviewing all the submissions, and on the 2 days of the jury actually escalating the costs to today's cost. So that was pretty salient.
Before giving a high-level overview of the jury findings, I want to say why I am here. Of course, I'm here to help acknowledge an extraordinary amount of commitment on the part of the competition teams. But I'm really here because I want my property value to go down. My wife and my 2 kids and I live in an 850 square foot missing middle townhouse in East Vancouver. I want Metro Vancouver to be full of places like where I live. I love that my kids have at least 10 doors on the block they can knock on any time of the day or night to get help from a friend if they need it. I love that we get 300 kids to our front door at Halloween. I love having one awesome big shared barbecue as opposed to 4 crappy little ones. I love that our neighborhood is still full of people who have chosen not to or could not start to climb the property ladder, but who put their passions into art or social service or theater or teaching or any one of the many critical jobs that our society does not reward well enough to make secure housing in this region an easy right. I want my children to be inspired by these men and women, and too many of them are leaving. A neighborhood full of only people like me who've won the generational lottery is one that I don't want to live in. And I think there is hope. Touching the single-family house zones was until recently the third rail of municipal politics. I now believe that those who are fearful of those neighborhoods changing, are now outnumbered by residents who are fearful of those neighborhoods not changing, as they realize they may have to drive 3 hours to see their grandkids. Maybe people have figured out that being rich, old, and alone on an empty street is not the most fun way to live. Let's talk about the jury process. We had a jury completely committed to a deep and rigorous examination of a ton of really complex advanced work. The submissions were incredible in their detail and level of commitment, and it was extraordinary to actually see how clearly people took on the challenge that we set for people. And we set the challenge for people to really try to get realistic solutions to these problems. And realistic doesn't mean not design ambitious, or not financially ambitious, or not socially ambitious. It means that it was all of those things and with the potential that they could be built. Our jury was smart, collegial, and diverse in profession outlook. You will meet some of them later. The City of Vancouver has informally requested our high-level findings and recommended changes to zoning and policy that constrain the opportunity to build missing middle housing. I wanted to share with you my first draft of what those are. First is the bad news. We can't densify our way out of the affordability challenge. There needs to be a broad-based strategy to reduce the input cost of land. This is tricky and it's complex to dig into in this kind of celebratory event. But the fact is that expanding the missing middle supply will enhance accessibility in the range of housing choices, but is unlikely to dramatically affect affordability in the absence of specific ways of reducing the cost of land, perhaps through different forms of tenure and/or land value extraction. Another way to put this is that design and density is not enough to address affordability alone. But they both are a huge potential contributor to addressing the range of housing opportunities, and they both are central to the affordability challenge. Next, the good news. 5 simple policy changes would dramatically expand the possibilities to create missing middle housing. First, and this is a direct challenge to city policy, rezone broadly, not in pockets. Rezoning in small areas will simply bump up land values relative to lower zone neighbors in other areas. I want to be clear, these are all things that we discussed in detail at the jury process. Rezoning in pockets creates islands of ridiculously high land values in areas of marginally less ridiculously high values. Broad-scale rezoning is the only way to easily mitigate this risk, and it's a call to Metro Vancouver leaders to be bold. Second, some of this is a bit technically geeky, but super important. Reduce parking requirements dramatically. This allows better units, better site plans, and lower construction cost. Especially ensure that underground parking will not be required in any missing middle neighborhoods. Parking costs a ton and hugely reduces the opportunity to do great and livable housing design. Let's design a city around people and not cars. And most of the friends that we know who are leaving the city are exactly the kind of people who don't feel the necessity or importance of owning a car. Third, make the building envelope bigger by reducing required setbacks and increasing allowable height slightly. This is pretty obvious. A tight zoning envelope makes for tight-ass housing. 4, reintroduce mixed-use zone in single-family zones by allowing both small commercial spaces and live-work. This surprised us a little bit during the jury process, but many recommended this. Part of the middle that is missing is live-work in small-scale flex commercial spaces. In many regions, we zoned out the corner store. The feeling we should bring it back and let artists or accountants set up shop on the street as well. And last, encourage different forms of social organization such as co-housing and shared multi-generational living. We often talk about the importance of family housing, and I'm all up for that. But I often think the person that lacks a voice in our housing is a single person who does not want a family, but wants a sense of family. Let's see a co-housing or a grown-up dorm on every block, not just as a scattered exception. Now on to the awards. We'll be giving out 3 special mentions with a $500 prize. Some people get big checks, others don't. Don't be disappointed, you still get the money. We added these during the process, the jury process. These are projects with a single aspect of important innovation that caught the jury's attention. In a complex process, we wanted to make sure that we said, here is a great nugget that we want to think about. We'll then present 5 honorable mentions with a $1,000 prize. We had a tie for 3rd place, and after a careful consultation, we decided that we would give out 2 third place awards rather than splitting the award. Our 2nd prize will be worth $5,000 to the deserving winners, and our 1st prize will be worth $10,000. Finally, our planner's prize is also worth $5,000. As Catherine indicated, this was adjudicated separately by Tom Anscaw, Gil Kelly, and Laura Lee Richard. They used their own criteria to select a winner. And the planner's prize is worth $5,000. Thank you.
Okay.
So the first award is a special mention located in Surrey.
The project is More is Good. The team is Ian Robertson, James A.V. Bly, and Simon Chan.
Specifically, we won't go through all of this, but specifically what we thought is these guys made a very direct approach to actually suggesting how one could rezone and extract the additional land value for social good as opposed to simply using it to enrich people who happen to own the land. That was a specific contribution and important in this project. Yeah. Our next one is a special mention from Port Coquitlam.
Yes, it is Studio B and Sean McEwen Architect. Sean McEwen, Chris Torres, and Alyssa Broche.
What we wanted to note really specifically about this project is it's kind of what we're doing illegally now, which is build big houses and stuff a lot of units in them. And they just figured out a better way to do it. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Our last special mention from Burnaby.
Okay, this is a project from Contingent. Neil Lee, Lawrence Vosch, and Daichi Yamashita.
What was commendable at this particular project is the team really took a hard look at different forms of housing. If anybody saw the New York Times article on the kind of the adult dorms being built in San Francisco, they suggested that this would be entirely applicable, properly designed in neighborhoods. So thank you all. Oh, that's better. Yeah. See, I told you we'd get better at this. Okay. The first of the honorable mentions.
Vancouver. This is a Vancouver project by 21, Cody Lofen and Yves Poitras.
Welcome. Come on up.
Come on
Have your
over,
photos.
stand and
then
let
we can get-
everybody see.
Yeah.
Good.
Hi. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our second honorable mention is in Surrey.
It's Misa Architects, Inc. David Zeben, Michael Wortman, Warren Shesky, and Dami Lee.
No, one more. Awesome.
Camera.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, how far is this? Is our third honorable mention is from Port Coquitlam. Sorry, I realize that not everybody, 99% of the people will know this. We did have 4 sites, one in Port Coquitlam, one in Surrey, one in the city of Vancouver, and one in the city of Burnaby. So this is why we're referencing those. And the teams were randomly assigned which site they worked on.
This team is TOAD. Tony Osborne, Emily Reynolds, and Alex Robertson Mercer.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. This is the fourth of the honorable mentions. Team name.
Columba, Sofia Martinez, Alberto Suarez, Pat McLean, Ian Marcuse, and Noah Sedsky. Also, Mélène Valin.
Awesome. Come on up. Awesome.
And you made it on time to collect your award.
Congratulations. Okay, we'll, And the last of the honorable mentions was a Burnaby team.
It was a Burnaby team out of the city of Toronto. It's Workshop Architecture, Helena Predolnik, David Calusi, Thomas Petch, Elaine Chow, and Matthew Lau.
And I don't think they have any representatives
They
here,
don't.
but they are very excited. This is the first of the third prize awards. So remember, we had a tie for third prize.
Okay, this is Goodale Architecture Planning. It's a Vancouver scheme by a Pasadena firm, and so they are not here either. David Goodale, Bill Rabin from Pasadena, California.
Second of the third prize awards. That sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? Second of the third prize awards. You know what I mean.
It is Alt Forma, Cedric Jacques Yu, and Shane Wu. They are in Scandinavia, and so unable. They're doing some urban design work there.
So now we have the second prize, the first prize, and the planner's prize. So these are, remember, the second prize is $5,000, the planner's prize is $5,000, and the top prize is $10,000. The second prize in the Missing Middle competition goes to
Happy Middle. The team is called Happy Middle. And they are Charles Montgomery, Elsa Snyder, Harley Grusco, Leslie Shea, Kathy McGrenera, Mark Shea, Michelle Hoare, Rafina Wu, and Wilmer Lau.
So we should note that in the jurying process, there were teams, we really gave people an option of to what degree they did just a single family or a pair of lots, to what degree they addressed the whole thing. It was really, I would say, the top two that were actually extraordinary and exemplary and really trying to address all of the scales of intervention, both at the scale of the individual or pair of lots and at the scale of the much broader city in very, very, very sophisticated and intelligent ways. So the top prize for the Missing Middle competition of $10,000 goes to
Hexiety. The team is Shirley Shen, Travis Hanks, John Roddick, Jorge Roman, and Mark George.
Congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
Great scheme. Great scheme.
Hello. Now, I'd like to invite Laura Lee of Port Coquitlam and Tom Ainscough of the City of Surrey to present the final prize of the evening, the Planner's Prize.
Thanks, Bruce and Catherine. I'm Tom Ainscough. I'm the city architect of the City of Surrey. Work in the current planning department. I'm here with Laura Lee Richard from thanks, Laura Lee, from City of Port Coquitlam, the Director of Development Services, and the other Planner's Prize jury member was Gil Kelly, who is not able to be here, but he's here with us in spirit. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the experience of developing the criteria for the Planner Prize, and then also why the Planner's Prize was chosen. And then finally, the importance of the Planner's Prize. So the criteria that we developed are quite similar to the main jury prize. So included affordability, social interaction, and design. But there was more of an emphasis on planning issues. And so what we came up with after much discussion and under able direction from Laura Lee, response to context, social interaction, affordability, and regulatory innovation. So I'll talk a little bit about the first two and then turn it over to Laura Lee. So response to context, we were interested in projects that demonstrated that their form and character of the project was compatible with an existing single-family neighborhood. And that meant that the scale of the project was sympathetic to their single-family neighbors and provided that kind of residential articulation. Secondly, in terms of social interaction, we were looking for projects that provided opportunities for social interaction on the site and in the neighborhood. And that meant things like Bruce mentioned, like providing courtyards, community garden, live, work, daycare, corner store, that kind of thing. And we also considered the unit design in terms of the social benefit, and response, flexibility of the unit, the varied response to varied household size, and the ability to adapt over time. So Laura Lee will talk about the other two criteria, affordability and regulatory innovation.
Thanks. Bruce actually touched on it in his introductory remarks about how important it is that when we're looking at our housing projects from a planning perspective, about adding to the housing stock in our communities. And now it's ever more critical that we look at how we add housing creatively and work with our politicians so that we can achieve those types of decisions. So adding that mix was one of our most important criteria. The other one, Bruce also touched on when he was talking about the advice he had had from Vancouver, and it's about regulatory innovation. And as a director of development, I'm continually challenged by how I can make the approval process more efficient, more friendly, and with greater certainty behind it. And I was so pleased to see so many great ideas included in the submissions that were brought in as part of this competition. I saw that there were people who were pushing the envelopes, and they were doing it in a way which still showed respect for what was already there. And for that reason, I thought that that was one of our key criteria. Now, I would like to mention that we considered making sustainability one of our criteria, could have been our fifth. But as we looked at all 34 submissions, we realized every single one of them could meet sustainability criteria. And many of them did a very good job of explaining how they could do that, and others put focus on other aspects. So we felt that that was already taken care of and didn't use it in our evaluation. We also concluded and found that there were so many great ideas within the submissions that we can't wait to take them back to our staff and say, how can you make this happen? Working with our planning colleagues and others. And we see that this competition enriches our immediate planning efforts and helps us rethink our low-density neighborhood as we transform our low-density neighborhoods. So we are going to be awarding the Planners Prize tonight to a group which truly addressed our planning criteria. They offered a creative response to the site. They created innovative opportunities for social interaction and ways to achieve housing affordability. They had great ideas for implementation as well. We appreciated that their concept was presented in an elegant, clear, and concise manner. And for that reason, we are awarding the prize to...
The Planners Prize goes to Heck City. Shirley Shen, Travis Hanks, John Roddick, Jorge Roman, and Mark George.
Congratulations again. Congratulations.
Another picture.
Congratulations. We know everybody's eager to get out and have a drink. We wanted just to take a moment to hear a few notes from the jury, because the jury actually did an extraordinary amount of work. So if I can have quickly Dawn, Daniela, Karen, Joe, and Bryn.
Just going back, I mean, there was a total of 34 submissions that was presented for review, and I thought the level of information in terms of the financial was very, very impressive. Now, admittedly, when you get 34 submissions, you are going to have some variances in there, and I have to thank Connor Falls, who is sitting in the corner here somewhere, who did stellar work in trying to assemble it so that we could have an even benchmark for the comparisons. For me, the one part that was impressive was looking at the revenue side. And it was some amazing ideas that came out of it, right from the idea of creating, family trust for the land to make it more affordable to share by several parties, to developing income generating, spaces within the designs, specifically commercial spaces that would create income on an annual basis to support the development. There were also two other ideas that came out. One was the idea of creating co-ops, which I think is something that we've done in the past. And then finally, I think there was another idea that was suggested of, using specific loan programs that are out there by people like, Van City, where you could, borrow money and the capital repayments would not occur until about 5 years into the project. And this would again, aid towards making the projects more affordable. So those were the more, for me, the highlights of the review of the pro formas.
Thanks, Joe. Karen?
I think Bruce touched on sort of the 5 concepts that we're going to bring forward, Urbanarium is going to bring forward, and I think those were very key to what the jury was seeing as important contributions to the ideas, the design ideas. And the 34 submissions, the excellent submissions, they didn't make it easy for the jury. Again, we found the depth and the quality of the information provided was exceptional. We all commented on the excellence of the presentations, with many submissions illustrating complex ideas and concepts through simple graphics, and in a few instances using a menu to create what the solutions might be. We appreciated the submissions that explored intergenerational and co-housing living. And it was interesting to observe those proposals that were specific responses to one municipality, such as Surrey, where the neighborhood did not have laneways, so it was interesting solutions. But there were many ideas that were transferable and applicable to a variety of municipalities, such as the first place winners. One interesting outcome that we found consistently is that the affordability issue will not be resolved solely through design, and it became apparent that changes to single-family zoning bylaws need to be reconsidered. Many of the ideas demonstrated through simple changes to setbacks, heights, and massing, you could achieve on 2 single-family lots, homes for up to 17 families, which is incredible. Congratulations to the winners recognized here this evening, but also cheers to the many entries that brought forward provocative ideas for our Metro Vancouver planners to ponder. I look forward to which ideas the municipalities will embrace and make a reality. Thank you.
So we didn't plan this out, but it's good. I think we're all talking about something different, so that's good. I've spent most of my career in academia and in municipal planning, but I'm a landscape architect by training. And so the thing that I want to talk about, the reflection, is a little bit related more to the outdoor space and the creation of private and semi-private outdoor space in a very challenging environment of densification of single lots. And it was really interesting to see the way the teams struggled with that notion of how to create private and semi-private and communal outdoor space. As density and lot coverage increase, there's an increasing challenge to create attractive and useful outdoor space. And there were sort of 3 strategies that different teams chose, and they had their pros and their cons. The first strategy was around creating courtyard housing, and that's a really interesting model in our environments. It's easier to do on a larger site. On these small sites of 1 or 2 lots, it's very difficult to create usable courtyard spaces. But many teams struggled and were successful in doing that. In our climate, that's challenging because you've got big built form and you've got small compressed spaces. And so finding ways of getting sunlight and sociability into courtyard spaces on these compressed lots was a real challenge, and some did a great job in that, and some of the winners did. The second strategy was not to create courtyard housing, but to use the rooftops. And I think that's a very underutilized strategy in our region. You're starting to see it more in townhouse projects, I'm sure in other municipalities as well as Surrey. But the rooftop space, communal space for outdoor community gardens on the roof, were some really interesting schemes. And I think our challenge will be around creating these kinds of rooftop spaces that don't feel detached from the ground and detached from the units around them. Some schemes did a fantastic job of that, again, some of the winners. And the third strategy was borrowing streetscape, basically not playing with the setback, not creating the island of built form in the middle of setbacks on all sides, but of really kind of flowing between the private and the public realm and borrowing some of the streetscape and boulevard space to enrich private outdoor space and communal outdoor space on the lot. Those were 3 very successful strategies. A fourth strategy is perhaps less successful, but maybe is also an important consideration if we're truly concerned about affordability, and that is to basically defer those spaces to the public realm, to build fully on these lots, and then through cash in lieu or other means, create open space that is shared amongst a number of projects within the neighborhood. But those are 4 strategies, and I think it's going to be a challenge for us as we densify and really operationalize these kinds of schemes that we've seen to create not only a successful architectural form, but also really compelling and rich outdoor spaces for people.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela Ferguson. I'm a professional planner, so I'm looking at this from a planner's lens. I co-run and co-own a consulting company as well. And I would like to thank Laura Lee Richard for pointing out that some of these schemes really did look at the big picture of how can we make our zoning, land use approvals process more comprehensive, more efficient, easier to use. And that was really inspiring. And what it tweaked for me is that the system is broken. The system is broken, and big kudos to you, Bruce and Catherine, for cracking those eggs at the beginning, so I can build on that now. And I'm just curious, how many people in the audience here are renters? Yeah, me too. My rent has gone up, it's tripled in 5 years. Yeah, and I own a business. Like, this is affecting everyone. This is a really serious issue. And what I want to applaud is all the people who put in submissions who said, the system is broken, we need to figure this out. So those real inspirations going beyond architecture and beyond buildings to look at new ways of owning land and new ways of being in community together, and looking at models that have been already working, like co-housing and co-ops, and saying, how can we do even more of this, even more better? What does it look like in a more suburban context? So thank you, that was really inspiring. And I think the implications for the future are interesting, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and say something that might get some roll eyes, but I encourage you to go on this journey with me for just a minute and think about, what does this actually mean? And the first land survey in our region was in 1850. So I would argue that private land is a relatively new concept in our geography. I'm not going to lie, my elementary school is older than that, the one I went to. And we're on unceded Coast Salish land, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? With the Chilcoltin decision, if you don't know about it, I encourage you to Google it. I think it's got some unanswered questions about what private land ownership means, an Aboriginal land title, and what the future of that could be. There's some unanswered open questions there. So yeah, a little provocative thought for today is the future of our housing in this region. Can the market provide that? Can private land ownership provide that? And what is the future for shared ownership there? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bryn from Lane Fab. When I got that packet of all the submissions, it was like this thick and extraordinarily daunting, because you guys have put a lot of work into this. It's one thing to do a design competition with a bunch of whizzy, cool-looking, funny things, but then to also dig into the zoning, to take a Sharpie to the zoning, to dig into the pro forma, to look at how these things unfold over time. To do all of those things in one submission was quite impressive, and it was really fascinating to take all these issues that I'd been thinking about, and we've all been thinking about, and just to see them expressed in so many different ways. I thought from my personal point of view, we build single-family houses and laneway houses. We're operating, we're doing infill, working with the city. And from that lens, I was really interested in how we started to try to address this idea of single-lot densification. Because I've found through my own experiences that if a young couple builds something on their parents' property, they can build for about half the cost of a market condo. And so this idea of unlocking the potential of owners, existing owners, as the developer, is this really extraordinary opportunity. But so much of our zoning is hostile towards single-family development. So I think that this whole thing was really this amazing opportunity to say, how do we take our leafy, green, pleasant, quiet, single-family neighborhoods and turn them into leafy, green, quiet, pleasant, multifamily neighborhoods? How do we stop cramming condos and renters onto the smelly, noisy corridors while we, have this large gated community everywhere else. We talked about the fact that design alone wasn't going to get us to affordability. But when we look at the price of admission into these single-family neighborhoods, they've really become limited just for incumbents and the wealthy. And so as much as anything, even though they're not cheap buildings, all of these proposals really, they sort of they're unlocking the gate and saying everybody can come in. And I think that's an extraordinary thing. So let's go have a drink at the bar and celebrate. Thanks.
Thanks to all. I'm going to get, Richie, you don't get to come up quite yet. Just a minute. So we're going to do just a couple of brief notes on what we're planning to do with this. If I have any hesitation about a competition, it kind of implies that somebody has the right answer and other answers are lesser. And I actually think that one of the things that got much more clear to me through this process in a really visceral way was that it's only if everybody in this room brings all of their intelligence to bear to this really dramatic problem that we're going to make any progress. So it's really, this is a moment actually not about celebrating just the winners, but an incredible level of passion and rigor and thoughtfulness. And I want to say I think I will probably say it for Catherine as well, that we're really humbled by that opportunity.